You're listening to The Talent Sync. The Talent Sync is a collaborative podcast production about anything and everything recruiting and hiring. Literally the kitchen sink and how all things in talent acquisition work together, should work together, and how sometimes they don't. Now it's time to sync up with your hosts, Kevin Grossman and Leah Daniels. Today's topic is about evaluating recruiting technologies. Today, enjoy the podcast. Leah, how are you doing? It's great to see you again.
Nice to see you. How have you been?
You know, I've been good. We're actually having a little bit of a heat wave right now where we live. It's been almost yesterday was 90. Today's going to be 90. It's going to be like that over the weekend. And it's unusual where we live in Santa Cruz, California. But when it happens, thank God we had these ceiling fans installed in our upstairs because we don't have air conditioning. We don't need it usually, right? I mean, that's just where we live, but the heat wave has been, it's when it happens, it's only a few days, but it's a lot for us poor little kids by the sea in Santa Cruz. I know, right?
Your life is so hard. So hard. What was you? You're going to have to go to school uphill.
So you
both
are,
ways.
we've got, this is, HR tech season, right? This is Unleash tech season. There's this full blown conference season. I hear good numbers for HR tech. I hope that's the case. So that's good. And I don't know about Unleash in Paris, but I hope that they're both great shows. It's that time of the year. It's that season. I hope that there's not, by the way, in Vegas, I hope there's not going to be a hospitality strike because there's have you heard that? There's threats of a hospitality strike. I don't know how soon.
No.
Well, there's Kaiser strike. We have Kaiser. So there's that strike, and then you still have the UAW strike. There might be hospitality. Anyway, we are going to talk today about reviewing and purchasing recruiting technology. That's kind of going to be our theme, and I look forward to hearing and learning a lot from you as well, since you are immersed in it on a daily, if not minute by minute basis. But I got a story about Buyers Remorse, this is kind of will kind of segue into our theme. So that was related to technology. So it was about, a year and a half ago. Chris Russell, you know Chris Russell? Chris is a good guy. And I was at some event. I don't remember. I think it might have been maybe it was early 2000 when Hire Easy did an event a while ago. And he was there and he was talking, and he's a big biker, a mountain biker. He's totally selling me on getting an e-bike. You've got to get an e-bike. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, this is great because, I need to drive less in town and I need to, use less gas and just try to be more efficient with things. And I'm like, this is a great idea. I'm going to do it. So I convinced my wife I'm going to buy an e-bike. And I got one of the, I guess, lower end, less expensive ones, but it was, still not cheap for the bike, and was so excited and got it and started riding it and now I don't ride it. Almost every other week my wife is like, are you going to ride that thing? I'm like, maybe we could see if the girls want to ride it. They want to use and it's like, we have a lot, but it was this thing in my head and I had all these use cases in my head about what it's going to help me do and I don't ride it.
So I have two thoughts on this. So first and foremost,
give me I want 4 thoughts, Leah.
Okay, four thoughts. So first, I grew up in a household, and my mother is one of the most thoughtful buyers of all things, to the point where one might argue it's painful to be in her presence during an evaluation period, because you will hear about couch colors for, 6 to 12 months, right? She is a very slow acquirer of things. She thinks these things through. She's very meticulous. I am an impulse buyer. I think it's in part because I grew up in a household with somebody who's like an extremely careful buyer. So I am an impulse buyer. I'm like, great couch, good enough, let's go.
That's me too.
Right? Like, I don't have time for this. So her and I have these conversations about how she always regrets what she buys. 100% of the time. Doesn't matter what she buys. Whatever she decided on, she will regret it later because I think she's overthought it. She's over-considered all the options.
Bam, that's what I want. And that's stereotypically, by the way, what we tend to say, that's how guys shop. I mean, that's not, I don't know if that's fair or not, but that's for me, I want to go, this is the thing, is this what I want? I buy it.
Yeah. And so the second thing is, as a buyer of technology for my work life, which is different than my personal life, I am not an impulse buyer, although I also don't take 12 months to make a decision. I try very much to have a list of what I need, and then I go and I evaluate my choices, and I bring team members in and who's going to be the users and make sure everybody has buy-in, and I do all the right things. And inevitably, there's a gotcha. There's a thing I didn't know to ask or think about or just assumed, or the rep said the answer, but it wasn't quite maybe all the answer that I actually needed. And it's definitely one of those things that I don't know who out there has mastered this part of it, but I would love to hear from them. Like, how do you make sure you get all of the answers, but don't go to my mom's 12-month program? Can we shorten that a little bit? There's that. And then there's kind of the last thing that, so I'm going to give you 4, Kevin. Here it is. You know this. I left Appcast and I spent a few months and I wrote a book, which I have not published. Everybody, I will do it at some point. But one of the premises of this book is that a lot of people like to do partner deals with each other. These companies do partner deals and they sign the paperwork and everybody's excited. There's a press release. Nothing happens. And nothing happens because nothing was operationalized as part of that agreement. When you buy technology and you have not thought through the operationalization of that, oh my gosh, I can't talk today, that technology, it fails. And in fact, I was just reading today, Gartner puts out this article, this study every year about regret in your technology decisions. And the last one that just came out a few months ago, 55% or 56% technology buyers regret their choice. And that's a lot. And what's clear is it's not just the technology choice. Sometimes it's the entire category.
And by the way, that Gartner, that was at the company level, right? That is including a lot of different facets, right? There's finance, there's IT, there's, if it's HR and recruiting technology, it's those folks, others on the team that are all part of this, right? To look at and review and to vet and to poke at and to redline contracts and all those things.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I think what's interesting about all of this, if you think about yourself in the TA leader's position, the one thing you're actually not is a professional buyer, right? You're not a professional buyer, right? You do this off the side of your desk, like many things that you do off the side of your desk.
I do a lot of things on the side of my desk, so
I know, right? I have a very big desk these days, so much sides.
lots of side. When
you look at the talent technology bubble chart that they put out every year, or Sarah White has one from
like the map of everything that exists.
And you take a second, and first of all, you realize that's not everything, and there's so much there, and it's all done in a kind of a category way, which assumes a little bit like you actually know the category you need for the problem you have, which is a whole other problem. But it's an overwhelming amount of information and solutions available. And I think as buyers, it gets really difficult to hear in all of the noise. Will this solve my problem as a general statement? And then will it solve my problem in my environment, right? Because just because it solves somebody else's problem that's similar doesn't mean in your environment it's going to work. And that, I think, is a really hard thing to suss out as part of the acquisition process.
It is. And then just the whole idea of the exercise of identifying what the problem is. And is it really a problem? Is it really impacting, for example, how we're converting candidates on our career sites? Is it really impacting, just the understanding of what that problem is? And is it a near-term or a long-term problem too? There's a lot of problem solving around the problem to know what it is about what it is I need. And we all know you work for a technology company. I've worked for many over the years, and you're doing your best to serve up different use cases of why your buyers should buy and how they can. That's why we have case studies too, right? So that I can relate to it. But to your point, it's not necessarily the same way that I'm going to operationalize. But I think that's a big part of what's missed, because the operationalization of it, what's baked into that is it being utilized and optimized? And that's part of the operationalizing, right?
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hey everybody, Kevin Grossman here, president of Talent Board and the Candidate Experience Awards. Our 2023 Candidate Experience Benchmark Research Program will open in January and run through August 31st. To learn more on how your organization can participate, go to thetalentboard.org.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
So it's more than that, right? So actually, let's go back 2 steps. So have you ever been to the doctor and you're like, my back hurts, and they go, oh, it's clear you actually pulled a muscle in your leg, and you're like, wait, what? Right? So a lot of times the problem that we focus on is actually a symptom and not the problem. And we don't even know. So problem one is are we even addressing the root problem, or are we actually addressing one of our symptoms? So we don't always know that. So when you patch up the symptom, do we actually solve the problem, or do we just find out that we've uncovered more symptoms or a different area of the problem? So
recently I had a conversation. I don't know if you know Joshua Seacrest from Paradox. He's one of their VPs now, but he used to be at McDonald's, and that's kind of how then McDonald's became a Paradox customer. And anyway, the conversation I had with him, though, is that they're pushing AI technology. I mean, that's what they're all about. The difference is that they're staying focused, at least is what he shared with me and some other folks. So I had him on one of our community meetings, and that they are relentlessly focused on improving and automating candidate communication, which from my perspective is one of the issues for any company of any hiring volume and big scale. They need that help. They need the help to be able to, I can now automate these communications that go out to my candidates and do it personalized. But that is something that they are helping to solve, instead of getting caught up into the whole generative AI and the magic of, like one of our episodes we did about, ChatGPT 2.0. Yeah, that one. But I mean, it's so again, and it's not this isn't necessarily a plug for Paradox, but it was refreshing to hear that they are staying focused on that. I want to help you communicate with your candidates.
I've actually heard the Phenom team also describe themselves as a communication platform.
Same thing with Phenom. Totally.
Yeah.
That was the next one.
I love that because that's a root problem, right? That is not a symptom. That is a root problem that and I would say both of them have some really amazing technology to support that problem and solution. But so we've got this root problem, right? So are we actually addressing our real problem? And then the second question is, when we look at technology, how will it work, right? Is it a separate login and a separate screen? Okay, if that's the interaction, will my team actually go through the effort to use a standalone product? If it's integrated, how integrated? When was the last time it was updated? What's the error rate? How frequently does it break? I was talking to someone, I won't say who it is, but they were looking at a CRM and they have all these tools that they use that are really, really important to them. And the CRM said, no problem, integrate with all of them, check, 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 check. And I was talking to this company, I said, why don't you just call the vendor of each of those tools and make sure that they also agree that those integrations are up, running, and functional the way they're supposed to be. So they did, and maybe they weren't. And it was a really interesting sort of experiment for them because they realized that the vendor that they're talking to, they do have the integrations. They have checked the box. Doesn't mean it works.
Well, and that's exactly what we said in one of the last episodes that we did together, is that you brought that up. You're like, yes, just because you say that you have an integration with Platform X doesn't mean that necessarily works like it's supposed to. And maybe it was even a one-time integration that was done. You can say that you have it. And again, this is a lot of complex stuff that we're talking about right now, but this is part of the vetting process, right? You need to make those calls. You need to understand, can this really do what you're saying it do? Can I plug into these other things? Is it going to help me? Because some of these companies, I don't know what numbers you've seen, but I mean, mid-sized to global enterprise.
Yeah, I was at a D conference recently, and somebody asked the question, how many tools do you use for your just recruiting every day? Everybody raised their hand if you use one. Take your hand down when I say the number, and the whole room goes up at 1, and then they said 2 and 3 and 5 and 7, and we kept going. We got to like almost 20 before we lost the last people. But I would say the majority of the room was somewhere in the 8 to 12 range. That's a lot of tools on a day-to-day basis that you are interacting with in logins. And I mean, I can't remember log into anything, never mind everything. And they're trying to make all of these point solutions string together to solve a problem that they have. And a lot of times, and you and I did some work together, it's like 25% of a recruiter's time is spent doing manual work between these tools because they just aren't getting the support they need from the technology. And a lot of that, again, goes back to not understanding how to vet the thing you're looking at to know what work it's going to create for you downstream.
Another point that relates to that, And it's something that we found when we did that piece together, and a lot of some of these other research pieces. And we've just completed our first Beyond the Benchmark research. That's not a sponsored piece. It's actually from Candies and Talent Board about pipeline management. And one of our research advisory members, who are all TA leaders, brought something up when they read it. They're like, this is, because there's always the disparity we see between what leadership feels, what the quality and how satisfied they are with their process, with their systems, versus how recruiters are, how satisfied they are with those There's always a disparity. There's always a gap. And every research report we do, and it was brought to my attention because I thought about it before, but I didn't articulate it until somebody said, think about this for a minute. A lot of times the frontline users, the recruiters, for example, they're not in the purchasing conversations. They should be, but sometimes they're not. And ultimately when that decision is being made, I don't want to name names per se, but when our company we're being put on recruiting platform X because our HRIS backbone is this, but nobody had say in that, right? That was an executive decision that was made for whatever purchasing reason that is, the deal that they got, I don't know, and it doesn't necessarily translate in. Again, how is it being operationalized? Ooh, I said it correctly, by the way, without a hic up. And how is it eventually being utilized and optimized? And their opinions aren't considered.
It's interesting, right? Because I think especially when you're talking about giant software like an ATS or a CRM, like really ERP systems, the RFP, if it was going to be complete, would be so long no one would ever finish it, right? Because the feature functionality of these things is so deep. It's not just can it do this yes or no? It's kind of also the workflows that exist within it. And then you add another layer of complexity with some of these technologies, which is they are customizable. And so now you're into a choose your own adventure model with some of these, and you're bringing in outside resources to help you choose that adventure, right? Am I going to, like a bear hunt, am I going to go through it? Am I going to go around it? Am I going to go under it? I don't know. And, then you've got this layer of how much experience, not does the company you've brought in to help you implement, but actually the consultant that is doing that implementation for you. What do they know? What is their experience and their bias? And this is all going to play into how you end up with this system. Now, on the other half of it, we work with lots of companies who have been on the same system for years. So I was talking to a company today. They've been on Taleo for longer than we're going to talk about. And when you look at some of the things, you can tell that this has been Frankenstein over time, and they don't know how to undo it, right? Now we're sort of committed to this Franken version because somebody before me and before them made some choices that you're now somewhat saddled with.
See, there you go. Frankensync.
There it is.
Okay. Frankensync. But you're totally right about that. And I think that those are all things. Another thing to think about in this equation, again, when you're looking at recruiting your current recruiting tech stack and what you may or may not need. And I just talked to one of the companies that we did their Candy Data review with their technology lead on the recruiting team is going to HR Tech, and they're looking for a referral system. They really are trying to get something like that. And there's a few on the market that are out there. But she's already overwhelmed. She hasn't even gotten on the floor yet. She's like, I'm just so overwhelmed about, I'm going to be inundated, because that's what happens when we go to these events and these conferences. But there was an article that, I don't know if you know Susan Lamont, who runs Exacquia, which is an employer branding firm. She's was a TA leader for a long, long time. She worked at Marriott for a long time, and then she started her own employer branding firm. Anyway, she did a piece that she posted on LinkedIn that I liked, and it had other people chiming in, Jerry Grossman, John Vasconcelinta, which I know I didn't say right, John, and my apologies to you, and some others in the space that about, technology has always disrupted recruiting and hiring, going back to the worldwide interwebs and when ATSs first appeared. But now that there's this feel that it's impacting more of the people too, more than at least historically, like the recruiting teams, for example. They are leaner. There's been more and more layoffs and churn, burnout.
I heard the other day from a company, will this technology I'm looking at replace recruiters? I actually heard those words, and I haven't really heard that frequently before, and it's happening now.
Time for a Talent Sync break.
Hi, Talent Sync listeners. I just wanted to share a bit about JobSync with you all. JobSync helps companies get more quality candidates out of their job board advertising and automates a variety of manual recruitment tasks by solving for the very low conversion rate challenges most companies experience on their career site. JobSync integrates your entire application, including all of your questions, directly into the various job boards' quick apply processes, providing you with fully completed applications directly into your ATS and resulting in 2 to 5 times more candidates while dropping your cost per application by half. This helps return up to 10 hours a week back into your recruiter's time through custom automations that are based on your business-specific recruiting processes. JobSync works with most major ATSs like Workday, SuccessFactors, and Taleo, CRMs, programmatic platforms, and job boards like Indeed and Zip. You can check out jobsync.com to learn more.
Break time's over. Now back to the Talent Sync.
It's concerning because, and there was a quote from this piece that was like almost every element of the candidate experience, which is something I focus on, obviously, can be automated. I agree with that. I know that's the case, but across the entire candidate lifecycle, elevating that experience almost always requires personal connection and human interaction, which I will always agree with as well on that. But the concern is that, is it truly, when you think about what are your problems? What are you trying to automate for? That's a little bit scary.
As a candidate, do I want buying a job to be as simple as buying a toaster?
Right. And it's not.
Think about it. Like the buyer's remorse here, right? When I get that toaster from Amazon, I'm very excited. It took 2 days. It was on Prime. It's on my front door. And I open it up and I'm like, wow, I don't remember buying this in avocado green. And it sparks when I plug it in. Maybe I should return it. It's different than when you made a life choice to leave one job to go to another one, and you would get in there and there's nothing but buyer's remorse.
Yeah, far from being equitable those are things that are not the same.
I know. I am simplifying it a little bit, but these processes I have seen where it's the recruiter-less hiring process where you have gotten a job offer at the end of your application is interesting to me because as a candidate, yes, if the only thing I care about is the hourly rate and how far it is from my house, and that's enough of the decision-making process for me, I guess that works. But if it's like you would like to like the people you're working with and you like to understand the culture or the business at all at any point, and if the company wants to know if they like you, how do you do that without a person involved? It's a question.
It is a question, and I think that they're just like what we talked about with Phenom, Paradox, and many other suppliers in the space of what they offer, how they can help automate administrative tasks. I sound like I can be a case study now. The point is that all of these things can and do make a difference at the end of the day. But I think we have to be really careful also about where we're even at with things like generative AI, that we're still really, really early on the front end.
That's a great one too, in terms of buyer's remorse and looking at technology, right? If you're looking at technology with AI, you should have a series of questions before you start adopting. And the questions should be ask things such as, like, how will I audit this? How will I audit I don't know if you saw the new California proposed legislation, I think, that will hold companies accountable for their bias in AI that they are selling to employers.
Isn't that kind of what the New York law is too?
No, the New York law is still holding the employer and the employer alone responsible.
Oh, California's they're going to hold the hiring company.
No, they're going to hold the technology company liable as well. So if I'm creating a biased technology and I'm selling it to you as a California employer, I am also responsible as a shared liability instead of just the employer having the responsibility alone.
When you think about adverse impact and what the EEOC is responsible for reviewing and looking at, and OFCCP, the bottom line is that this is why some of the conversations I've had with some of the tech leaders being really careful about what our technology actually can help you do. And if it's outright making selection and hiring decisions without review or, checks and balances, then that is the danger going forward.
Yeah, but as a buyer of this technology, right, the questions you need to be asking are, like, how will I audit this? How do I turn it off? If I find out that I have a problem, how do I quickly revert back? Where's the off button? If I have a concern, what is my escalation path? How do I get to somebody who's going to help me, preferably not an AI at this point? It's going to help me navigate your business to solve this problem, right? These are some questions, right? Where are the touch points in my process that it's going to interact? Is there a human element involved, or is it running autonomously? These are a lot of pieces that I think are complicated. No one has really had enough time, because of this technology's newness, to think through and write out what are all of the things we need to consider and ask and evaluate as part of that technology buying experience.
As we start to kind of wind down a little bit in this episode, I kind of want to do a tangential connection to the RFP process, because that can be a super duper pain in the bottom to actually complete some of those templates that have rarely been updated for a long time, and all the things, the hoops, the information you've got to provide in a process that may have already been decided on. And again, I'm not suggesting anything, but I mean, how can we better than help companies? I mean, besides everything we've outlined so far, Leah, what would you recommend? How do you better vet this besides, fill out my RFP and then we'll review it?
It's a great question. I think that the entire process is tough, right? Sort of like the interview process, actually. Rarely is the interview process reflective of the job you'll be doing. And when you're looking at technology, it's rarely similar to what it's going to be living through. Pilot programs are always favorable in these cases, but of course, big tech, you can't go and pilot an ATS. You can't pilot a new financial system. And so I think you do have to take the time, perhaps get consultants in. Now, keeping in mind, consultants can be biased too, right? Because they also have their own businesses and they may be supported by some of these vendors. But you do have to sort of take a step back, really understand your own business. Do not make decisions in a vacuum. Don't let a singular vendor run your RFP process, which does happen not infrequently. Some of these really long RFPs, I understand it in an ATS, but for a lot of other solutions, that isn't actually the right answer either, because more isn't always more. Sometimes more is a mile wide and an inch deep. And part of the challenge for each company is to understand what is my actual problem and what do I really need from solutions and what am I willing to compromise on. I think finding 2 or 3 vendors that can help you and be collaborative through the process, and then talk to other users, talk to another company.
Yeah. Talk to other customers, talk to other companies that are using the system, and outline as many use cases that you think, again, try to have a better defined problem, understand what that is, and what are things that are going to help me solve that problem, and work that way. So this is great. And something else as we wind up now. So I talked about the e-bike, Buyers Remorse.
You're going to go ride it right now?
No. Well, yeah, I'm going to right after this podcast, I'm going to go ride the bike. Yeah, I should. But no, not that. And only that, there was another example too that I did just think of. I don't know if you had remember those Remarkable tablets that have been on the market.
I have one.
I know, I'm not using it.
Mine broke and died. That's why I don't.
Oh, did it really?
Yeah.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Mine didn't break. I was really wanting to get into that habit of writing out my notes and my thoughts again. And I was like so super jazzed. And now it's just sitting on a shelf.
I actually went through the right process. I bought a Rocket Book first.
I don't know what that is.
So it's a $30 version of the Remarkable, and it's a special pen and this paper, and you take a picture of it. It has a QR code, and then it does basically the same thing. And I used it for 3 months, and I was like, I'm using this. This is good. And so then I went up and I got the $400 Remarkable, and then it broke, and then I stopped doing all of it. And then the last conference I went to, I did, no joke, 75 pages of handwritten notes. So apparently I just want to do handwritten notes, and I should just.
Then you're doing it the old-fashioned way. You're doing it in the old school. But I'm like, yeah. So there you go. Well, listen, this has been a great conversation. I've learned tons myself again, and Leah, always a pleasure and grateful talking with you. So we'll get this episode out soon, and safe travels to you for sure. And hopefully at some point down the line, maybe it might be not till next year, but we'll get to see each other. So, all right, Leah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Talent Sync podcast, a Talent Board and Job Sync collaborative podcast production. More episodes soon.